right, thank you everyone for joining. Welcome to the Talking Turkey Fantasy Football Podcast. I'm joined here by my lovely co-host. Go ahead and say hello, guys.
Hello, guys.
After you, champ. Hello. How's it going,
hello.
guys?
It is I. Everyone's cup of coffee, Cody.
Oh wow, we can barely see the trophy this time. That's a shame.
Yeah, I know. I gotta add some polish.
It's got a little sliver there. A little sliver of there.
Yeah.
Just enough.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Tim, good to see you. How's things going over there in the Mile High?
So far, so good. The weather's cooling off a little bit. We'll see when we get some snow. Last year we got snow kind of mid-October, so we'll see how that goes. But I'm just glad it's cooling off finally.
There we go. Yeah, same here. It's cooling finally. California's not going through the craziest heat wave we've seen in 20 years. So it was 108-10 degrees last week, and now it's dropped down to a nice close 65. So wild temperature delta change there, but wonderful.
I don't miss that. Yeah. It gets up in like the high 90s here, worst. So yeah. Much better.
Yeah, rough 7 or 8 days there, but all good now. We're back to normal. And I'm your host, Commissioner Manny Jimenez. Good to see you all again. Thank you for joining, guys. Big week number 2 is past us, right? Now we're moving on to week 3, but lots have happened, lots that we'll talk about. There was just crazy games that happened, especially talking about Monday night's game, how that ended. I was just completely shocked with some of the coaching decision making by Nick Sirianni. I mean, Tim, I know you always love seeing those kind of bonehead decisions down the stretch. You want to kind of give us a rundown of what you thought when did you think Philly would just kind of run the clock out with the little time they had left with a couple plays, or what was your reaction to how that game ended last night?
Yeah, I expected with 3 yards to go, I think it was 3rd and 3, that they would just run the ball twice probably. If they had to. If they ran the ball on 3rd down, good chance they would have gotten it with either Hurts or Barkley, the way they were both kind of running. But, unfortunately, Barkley had a pass go right off his hands, and that was really the only scenario I think that Atlanta could have pulled it off. So, but just the whole night, the whole game was, I thought, questionable on both sides. Both teams just running chunk plays one after another. Like it seemed like every time Barkley got the ball, he was running for 5-10 yards. Same with Bijan. And they get inside the 10 and they decide, we got to throw it here because we don't want to run it here for whatever reason. So
because the 5 yards per clip is not going to cut it here, right?
Yeah, it was just weird. It seemed like both teams kind of blew it in the red zone most of the night. But yeah, I felt bad for Saquon dropping that pass. That's obviously he felt bad. He felt like it was his fault, but if he had been given the ball more earlier in the game, they probably would have been ahead more. So,
who wasn't feeling bad? Getsky from the Giants. the Lee Getsky, the GM, he was like, "Oh yeah, there we go."
I don't know. I think it's already too late for that.
Yeah.
He still probably wasn't feeling good watching him run for 5-10 yards at a time, though. But yeah, I mean I guess that felt good for Giants fans to see him make a mistake like that. So it's a rough way to lose it, but I just kind of a questionable call. I think I think it caught him off guard a little bit, maybe, but they still should have just run it, kept the clock moving.
100% on the coach, not on Saquon. I think his eyes got so big because he was so wide open. It was a great play design, but I mean, it was just strange to call that play in that moment. What do you think, Cody?
I mean, it's weird for you to say like, I want to blame the coach. I'm blaming the coach. Oh, great play design. Like the coach came up with the play, right? It hit Barkley in the hands. He had 4 targets before that for 4 catches. That was the one drop he had all game. No one's anywhere near him. He just holds on to that, turns, and then he doesn't even have to score. He'll do the thing where you take a knee on the 2, and then they can just kneel it out from there because Atlanta doesn't have the touchdowns to do it. You kind of have to blame Barkley because it literally hit him in the hands. If the pass sails over his head, you can blame Hurts. If they're doing something weird where they're fumbling the snap on a pass, or maybe Hurts is back there too long and gets strip sacked, sure, you could blame the coach for passing there, but the play essentially worked to how it drew up. The player just didn't come through.
Well, that's my point. You just outlined the amount of variability that could happen, right? A fumbled snap, Hurts trips over his own feet. Saquon trips coming out of the backfield. So many variables that could have how that play went wrong. Rather than just handing the ball off or just having Hurts run it, limiting your variability back there. That's why it's a terrible play call, right? I mean, Saquon made the mistake, but
I don't know. I still think I disagree. I mean, these are professionals at a high level. It's not high school football where those things are going to happen more often than in an NFL game. If you want to look at variabilities and point out negatives, you could say they can, Hurts can bobble the snap. Hurts can also bobble the pass to Saquon, not the pass, the handoff to Saquon. There's variability in everything. I still think it was a good play. Clearly, it kind of worked as designed. It just got dropped when kind of dropped the ball and dropped the game on that one. But you also have to give credit to the Falcons because they did have to drive. I think it was 3 plays took them all the way to the inside the 10 within 50 seconds. The Eagles defense could have come through and helped their offense out. They didn't. The Falcons just, like you said, it was Bijan tearing them up. Cousins wasn't doing much. Tim kind of mentioned until that last minute, the minute 27 left, he just went down the field in 3 plays.
Yeah. I mean, you could see both sides to it, but it seemed to me like the Eagles should have just, I forget the timeout situation. I think the Falcons had one. No. Did they have one on the 3rd down, or were they out at that point?
They had one left, I think, on the 3rd down.
I thought they had one.
Yeah, but if they would have ran it, they would have been forced to use, and then they would have just down the clock or ran another play. And
yeah, and I mean, it's it's not like it's a gimme 3rd and 3 in an obvious running situation. I think that's why they called that type of play to catch them off guard, and it did. But just, I mean, they settled for field goals earlier in the night. I think they didn't convert on 4th down when they were inside the 5 early in the game too. So there were just a lot of, like I said, if they had just stuck with running the ball inside the 10, they might have had another touchdown on the board already. And who knows? But yeah, ultimately, Saquon's the one who had the ball hit his hands and drop off of it. So left Atlanta enough time. They didn't even need that much time. I guess.
Hey, if the defense comes through, comes through. We're not even talking about it that much.
The defense was atrocious, and then I was watching the Manning cast because I don't know what you guys usually watch, but I prefer to watch that way more than the main. And they were talking about how Kirk Cousins looked best in that situation just because it's like you don't have to think as much. It's plays that you already know like the back of your hand rather than, some of the new plays you might have had to learn. So that's why he kind of looked comfortable at that point. So kudos to him too.
You're not trying to do play action. You're just sitting back there catching shotgun, planting and throwing.
Throwing, yeah. I mean, and kudos to him. The knock's always been he doesn't perform in primetime, right? Whenever he's got primetime games, he usually shutters down, and he didn't do that last night. So that was awesome. Good for him.
Kudos to him. Kudos to Drake London. Had a down year last year. Week 1, not a great week for him either. So he came through with a game-winning touchdown there. Game-winning for the Falcons. Game-winning for me as well because I beat Edgar in one of our side leagues we have with Angel Pope folks. That touchdown put me 2 points above Edgar. So Edgar's not looking great in at least one of the leagues we're in together.
We'll get to Edgar later. He's real high on his hog right now, but we'll get to that. Yeah, but Tim, you brought up this leads into our conversation about studs on the week, right? And then our prize turkeys, we'll call them. And you talked about Bijan and Saquon just running at will, right? They were getting big chunk yard plays, both of them. And then surprisingly, Bijan didn't get in the end zone. So he was still inside the top 20 running backs, but he wasn't as high as Saquon. Saquon just outside the top 10 or in the top 10, but we talk about the biggest stud of the weekend. And it was a very, very one-sided game. New Orleans versus the Cowboys at Cowboy Stadium. It was shocking outcome. So Alvin Kamara, Angel, proud manager of Alvin Kamara, he was, definitely strutting his stuff over the weekend and looking great. What was your guys' takeaway from Kamara's performance over the weekend? Well, surprising, right on par. I mean, what does he have? Like 9 touchdowns in 2 games against Dallas right now? Or because what did he have?
Tim should handle this one here.
So, I don't know how many times they played Dallas, but I think the stat I think you're thinking of is him against Mike Zimmer defenses. The last time when Mike Zimmer was in Minnesota, he had a 6 touchdown game against them, and I think Yeah, just a absolute monster game, and then obviously had another good one. It looked like so I didn't watch much of that game because it was just never close, and I was kind of sick watching Kamara, just tear it up. I mean, his catch and run for a touchdown. It kind of looked like the Cowboys weren't even really trying. I don't know if it's just my perception, but I felt like a lot of guys are just kind of jogging.
So
Really trying.
was that the shovel pass from Derek Carr to him, and then he just kind of took it and ran with it?
I don't remember if it was his only receiving touchdown. It was like
Yeah, it was
57
the
yards.
shovel
So
pass.
I
Yeah.
thought it was a screen pass, but yeah, whatever.
Mhm.
Just a short little pass, and then he just kind of weaved in and out of some defenders, and then hit the open field, and it just it looked like some Cowboys had a chance to probably catch him, but I don't know if they were trying that hard or what. But yeah, just yeah, it's not fun playing the guy who has that guy. So
Yeah. So Tim, you obviously went up against Kamara, the Kamara manager Angel. So you've now gone back-to-back weeks going up against the person that put up the highest score of the week, which is kind of a bummer in that space. I played against the number 2 running back this week, James Cook, and that happened on Thursday night with the Dallas Bills game, Miami versus the Bills game in Miami, and James Cook went off. So the Bills just kind of dominated. We had a massive injury from that game, but yeah, so I feel your pain on Thursday night. I was kind of cringing, like, oh man, really? Edgar's got a 20-point spot on me with Hill getting 0 production in that game, and he's one of our, duds
yeah.
So yeah, I feel your pain there. I mean, I didn't. What did Kamara put up? 45 for the week. I mean,
45.
Yeah, Kamara was basically almost double of what James Cook put. But yeah,
And Cook got most of his points in the first half, and if Miami could have kept that game closer, it could have been worse.
Oh yeah.
So, but yeah, so that's I mean, a 45-point game is maybe 1 or 2 games a year. A player might get that in our league. I don't know, but
that's a Tyreek Hill type of game, right? I think you got that a couple times from Tyreek last season, and yeah.
I don't know if he ever got
had one last year.
Yeah,
with Flacco.
I don't know if Tyreek ever had a 40+ point. He definitely had some high 30s, but yeah, I mean 45 is ridiculous. That's like
that's half a team production. That's half of Edgar's team average production right there.
Yeah, Achan had like I think Achan had a 4 touchdown game where he had multiple. Yeah, so it's like a 1 or 2 thing a year event, I think, in our league, because it takes multiple 50-yard touchdowns, or you got to get at least 4 touchdowns, and so it's
and 100+
crazy,
yards as well.
Yard bonus, that's right, and multiple touchdowns. So you have 100%. You just brought up Achan, the number 3 running back on the week. He looked great against Miami. Yeah, so even though Miami faltered big time against the Bills on Thursday night, Achan got massive workload due to the injuries to Raheem Mostert and Jeff Wilson Jr. So, Cody, what was your takeaway from Achan? You think you could sustain that production? I mean,
looking at his injury history, I mean, it's only his second year in the league, but he seems to have different injuries pop up. He was out for, I think, 6 games last year. He is a smaller, more slender running back who relies on his speed, although his patience, I have noticed, is getting better because I've been kind of following him since last year. But yeah, I don't predict that it's going to continue on, or at least I don't think he'll stay healthy getting this workload for all 17 games that we have. So I'll have to make some other plans around it, just in case for when, the injury does inevitably happen. And then if it doesn't, I'll just be pleasantly surprised, have him in my lineup. But yeah, with trying to get this workload, they're doing design touches for him out in the slot. He's getting some catches on short passes as well. I don't think he'll be able to stay healthy, but if he is and he keeps getting this volume, it's going to be 20 to 25 plus a game for him.
Yeah, I mean, 22 carries, 7 receiving, 7 catches. I mean, that's almost 30 catches right there in the game. That's massive production, right? I don't think he even remotely got close to that last season. He was a big explosive player, but I think he got 15 touches at most last
12 carries plus some catches. But it does help that not all those carries are going right up into the line. He's getting a lot of design looks to the outside, which do help him. He can choose to just step out of bounds, or he does have a corner trying to tackle him instead of a linebacker and lineman. So I think that will kind of help suppress some of the injury odds. But I feel like with a guy like him, it's going to be inevitable, especially when you see what's happening this year already in the first 2 weeks.
It's ugly out there in the streets.
Yeah,
ugly,
it is.
Ugly. And we'll talk about that later. Lots of injuries to discuss. Number 4 running back on the week, J.K. Dobbins. Back-to-back weeks where J.K. has put up over 100 yards. I think his first running back since LT on the Chargers have back-to-back 100-yard games, and that was great to see. I'm very happy with J.K. He's one of the great stories of the NFL so far as comeback player of the year. Is sustainable? I don't know, but so far so good. He had another touchdown. I know, Tim, again, this is probably another thorn in the side of someone that you drafted last season expecting to see, but what do you see out of JK this year? Is he expecting what you were expecting from last season, or is he outperforming what you think he?
Well, I mean, last week was the Raiders, which maybe they're better than we thought. I don't know. They just beat the Ravens, and then this week the Panthers. So it's hard to judge, but he definitely looks good. I mean, it's great to have a good running game with the Chargers finally, because it feels like they haven't had that for the last several years. So. But yeah, I mean, more or less, that's what I expected when I drafted him last year. I think he's a stud when he's healthy. I think he's kind of showing that now, but just never happens. So that's why I crossed my fingers just now. I hope it does. I mean, running backs, it's a dangerous position. Cody just talked about Achan's workload, and it's they touch the ball more than anyone, and injuries happen. So. I just hope he can avoid that and put together a full season finally.
Yeah. I mean, 17 carries, one target. So I like that they kept him under 20 still. I think that production is going to be okay. That way they can sustain it longer. Do you really think Jim Harbaugh, the Chargers are 2-0 now. They've looked great for the first 2 weeks. Defense looks a lot better than people anticipated. Yeah, their schedule seems a little soft, especially here in week 2. But week 1, they did play the Raiders, which we think are better now, as you said. Are you a believer in the Jim Harbaugh system, or still wait and see approach?
I mean, he's been successful everywhere he's gone, so I definitely believe in him. I don't know if the personnel is there necessarily this year for them to make a deep run or anything like that, but I mean, it's already looking much better than the last few years. So, but they haven't really played any great team yet, so I haven't even really looked at the upcoming schedule to see who they're kind of playing and when they're
getting tested the next couple of weeks here.
Yeah, they got Pittsburgh and KC back to back in the next 2 weeks.
Okay, and it's at Pittsburgh this week, I believe, right? In Pittsburgh.
Correct.
So
they're on the road.
They're staying on the East
Coast.
Tough
defense. So and they've played KC pretty tough. No matter how bad they've been the last few years, they always seem to play KC pretty tough. So, they can beat KC, then I'll probably have to start believing. But they just, it was nice to see Quentin Johnston finally look like an NFL caliber wide receiver too. So
Quez Johnson, wow.
Yeah, I was kind of a little more hopeful this year than previous year, just because of the coaching change, and nothing I've seen yet suggests that it was a bad move at all. So I think Herbert's dinged up though, so we'll see if he misses any time. If he does, that's not good. But yeah,
he's a tough guy. We've seen him play through some pretty rough injuries previously.
Yeah, and I mean, it looked worse when it happened, but I think seems like he'll be okay. He'll probably play, but the backup QB situation is terrible. So, yeah, hopefully he doesn't miss any time this year either, along with Dobbins.
Yeah, and we need him in there for sure. So let's go, Justin. Make sure you get yourself healthy for the week. Number 5 running back on the week. Carlos it's a Breece Hall manager. Breece Hall is the stud we all thought he would be. Maybe not drafted as soon as he should have been, or was he the 5th pick? He's been outstanding.
2nd pick, I believe.
Yeah, I think.
No, third pick, right? Because it was McCaffrey, Bijan, right?
No, I think Carlos picked
I
second.
think Carlos was picked 2. Yeah.
Pick
Carlos was
2.
picked
Okay,
2.
so all right, so
Yeah.
all right, the value's been there. Brees just looks outstanding with 14 carries. This week 62 yards. But did you see that catch he made for that deep pass from Rodgers? He caught it on. He went a wheel out to the right, and Rodgers just threw it deep to him, and he looked like a wide receiver catching the ball. He was great athleticism. So yeah, Brees is the real deal. I'm very, very impressed with what I'm seeing so far. So yeah, what do you got, Cody? What do you think of the Jets? Good bounce back game for them and how they performed?
Overall, I think, yeah, it would be tough to disagree with that. Looking at Brees Hall specifically, since you're talking about him, do you happen to notice who the number 7 running back on the week was? It was his backup, Braylon Allen, who stole 2 touchdowns from him. So yeah, Brees Hall was the number 5 running back while giving up, I think it was, let's see here, 2 touchdowns to Braylon Allen, who also took 8 carries as well away. 7 carries in this game and
7
catches.
carries. Yep.
So it seems like, Brees Hall could have had an even bigger day. So if you're a Brees Hall owner and you lost, it's probably a little bit tough. But Carlos, I think, was the high score of the week, the second week in a row. So he's happy keeping Brees Hall fresh. But yeah, I think the Jets are starting to look better. There's still these chemistry issues with Rodgers and Garrett Wilson, and they still got to work through those since he's been out for about a year. But I think it's nowhere to go but up for the Jets. They're in a division which now got easier with Tua out. They also get the Patriots, whose defense look really good, and they're going to play really conservative, but overall probably aren't that tough of a team. So I can see the Jets making the playoffs and having their main fantasy guys that we want to perform keep doing well.
And I'm going to quick slight correction there. Tim played the number 1 scorer of the week. Tim's played the number 1 scorer of the week back-to-back weeks.
No, Carlos got the number 1 score 2 weeks in a row, right?
No,
because of Kamara. That's right. That's right. How could I forget about Angel?
How could you forget?
My apologies, Angel. My apologies.
I knew right away.
Yeah. No,
I wasn't going to
correct me, Tim.
All right, I wasn't going to interrupt.
Yeah.
It's all good.
Tim was hoping.
We got to give it. I'm gonna because as I'm one pick Angel to take last place. When Angel puts up 119 points, I'm gonna say kudos to you, Angel, for Kamara senior season, right?
And when Angel puts up 119, I'm gonna say kudos to Carlos. Look at that over there. Just distract.
Manny's fault. I blame Manny.
Yeah. The schedule is
the sleeping giant. Yep.
Yeah.
The Jets. A good bounce back game, but the Will Levis experience is a good way to get right for most teams. I mean, did you see his absolutely mind-boggling? Like he rolled the ball
underhand.
He was
I don't know,
down and kind of like chucked it backwards underhand. It was very
it kind of like almost rolled along the ground towards the guy who just was probably like had no idea the ball was coming his way, because why would it? So he's just I don't know, he's making some boneheaded plays that I've never I can't really remember seeing any play like that before from a second year quarterback. So
I will say the only time I've seen those type of attempted type of moves is from Brett Favre. Young Brett Favre would do things that I would be like, dude, what in the world are you doing? Sometimes they would work pan out. It would be, oh, this guy's amazing. And sometimes it'd just be terrible. But he was such a gunslinger.
At least he played well though. Like Levis is not really.
No, he's
not making up for it like Brett Favre could. So
yeah. I mean, he still has that giant cannon. I mean, he did throw that great touchdown to Calvin Ridley on the right, that deep ball. Yep. So he has a little bit of that. Nowhere near Brett Favre was, but he definitely has the same type of thinks he can make every play type of attitude, and I think he needs to get that out of his pocket.
Yeah, there's moments, but he just has to learn how to, just take a negative play and not make it more of a negative. So
you've seen his coach. The coach after the game was furious.
Can't blame him.
What did he say? He said, he's a big boy. He knows better or something. What did he say about Will?
I don't know exactly.
I know after week 1, what the Titans coach came out and said, if we would have just punted on 1st and 10, we probably would have won that game. That was after week 1.
Yeah, that was a pretty good quote. I saw right after that play when he came to the sideline and he kind of did the whole face mask thing, and he said some explicitives to Will Levis as he was coming off the field, and yeah, coach was fired up, and so it's like, oh boy, so I hope they kind of tighten that up, right? And I can understand why coach is mad, but hey, you gotta be careful, right? All the cameras are on you, and yeah, Levis just has to clean up his game, not be so much of a wild card out there.
Yeah.
Yep. But rounding off our top 10, James Conner, great game. Cody brought Braylon Allen, who was awesome. Again, Jordan Mason. Rob, you lucky SOB. What a draft pick. And
What
Jordan
a lucky
Mason
pick.
is going to be a valuable option for the next 5 weeks minimum, right? I mean, at least. So,
yeah,
see what
possibly
happens.
more.
Possibly more. We have no idea.
Who knows? Yeah.
Yeah.
So vague. So
vague. Derrick Henry and then Brian Robinson in the top 10. So Saquon just outside. Cody, I'll ask you about Derrick Henry, right? So you've had back-to-back weeks where Derrick Henry's been okay, but it hasn't looked like Derrick Henry. And it's very strange how the Ravens aren't utilizing him to close out. I thought that was the whole purpose of bringing him on board. Like, hey, we haven't been able to finish out the games in the fourth quarter. Take pressure off Lamar. Let's bring in this bulldozer to just run the ball, run the clock, and let's control it. And they haven't really done that. So what's your take on the whole Derrick Henry experience so far for the Ravens?
I mean, Derrick Henry at this point is a little bit of an older back. And then you have Lamar, who was MVP of the league last year. So, I mean, when you put those two things on the scale, which one are you going to end up leaning towards? You're going to probably, trust a little bit more in your MVP quarterback than you are your, a little bit aged running back. So I can see why things have gone the way they have lately for Henry, but he's still got 18 carries. He's getting the touchdown. He scored a touchdown on a play designed for him where it was essentially a wildcat. Lamar had run out as receiver. Derrick Henry with the direct snap just dove in from 3 yards out and got the touchdown. He's going to be a touchdown monster. The Raiders, we know, have a really strong defensive line. Same with the Chiefs. They get Dallas next week, which is going to be probably another tough matchup in terms of just D-line versus offensive line. But I think there are better days ahead for him where he's going to have those 2-3 touchdown games that we're more accustomed to. He may not be breaking off the 50-yard runs where once he gets ahead of steam, no one can catch him and he bowls over a quarterback on his way to the end zone. But I think he'll just kind of have a more consistent floor and get you at least a touchdown, sometimes 2 every week, and be a solid source of points.
If Henry doesn't put up 3 touchdowns against that Dallas defensive line, there's a problem. Kamara just made it look like Swiss cheese.
Yeah, maybe that defensive line is more pass rushing than run stopping favored. So maybe that slightness will kind of help him in that department.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. I mean, I'm not so sure. Dallas's defense, like, not to take anything away from the Saints and Kamara. I mean, Kamara's shown in the past that he's one of the great running backs in the league, and I think he was kind of dinged up a lot last year. They got a new coordinator, but yeah, Dallas, they gave up, what was it, 44 this week, their last home game.
47 maybe?
No, the Saints scored 47 the week before.
44? Okay.
And then they scored 44 this week, but
they've got 97 over 2 weeks. Yeah.
Yeah, the Cowboys gave up 44. And then, they played at Cleveland the week before, which Cleveland, who knows, their offense is not good. But their last game against the Packers, you remember, Manny, they gave up, 48? So I don't know if that defense is
the last
as
2 home games in Dallas have given up 40-plus points. That's right, Tim.
Yeah.
Going back to last year and this year, the last 2 home games, the defense has been shredded. That's correct.
Yeah. So, and I mean, not that the Packers are a bad offense either, but still, they're after some of the performances, when they were beating up on bad teams, we thought Cowboys had a good defense, but I'm not so sure after that. It's maybe the Saints are just gonna put up 40 points every week this year, or maybe they've just played 2 very bad defenses and we don't really know it yet. So I'd be surprised if Derrick Henry doesn't have a good game against them. So, and I thought he would get more play in the second half against the Raiders too, kind of like what Manny's saying, to close it out. It seemed like he was picking up steam. Like, his first half was terrible, and then second half he was running for chunk plays, and usually the more you hand him the ball, the more likely he is to break off that 50-yard run. He just wears the defense down, and they just didn't seem to really do that, kind of let the game get away from him. So weird.
Yeah, strange. And they did the same thing week one. The first half wasn't that great for Derrick Henry. He had a touchdown early, but not many yards. But the third quarter, he started to get hot, and then they went away from the fourth quarter. It's weird. It's almost the same game script. Very strange. Very strange. You talked about the Saints, Tim. Next 3 weeks, Philly, Atlanta, at KC. So we're gonna find out who the Saints are over the next 3 weeks here. And if they go 4-1 in that stretch, they're for real in my book. So.
Yeah, I mean, they'll probably put up a lot of points again this week because Philly's defense, yeah, they brought in Vic Fangio, and it seems like they got a lot of good players, but it's not working for some reason. So,
not clicking.
Yeah, but yeah, like you said, we'll find out. Like I said, they have a new offensive coordinator. It seems like he's using a lot of motion.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, using a lot of motion, play action. It's working so far, but I don't know if it's going to work all year. It's still, I don't really have full confidence in Derek Carr to keep it up.
I was gonna say, when are you gonna bring up Derek Carr? I know that's the guy you want to.
And maybe I'm wrong. I don't know, but to quote Stephen A, I could be wrong, but I just don't believe in him. So we'll see. Maybe he'll prove me wrong, and I'll look like an idiot. But
yeah, Derek Carr is playing outstanding, and we'll talk about the quarterback position. But so far through 2 games, hey, all's good for Derek Carr. So good for him, right? After what happened with him and the Raiders, separation. So
I don't hate the guy. Seems like a good guy. Just I don't think he's a great NFL quarterback, but maybe he'll turn it around this year, kind of like Baker.
Yeah, exactly. A lot of surprise quarterback stories this year. So we'll get into that. But let's talk about the wide receivers this week, right? Wide receivers had an awesome week. After the week 1 duds that we saw all across the board, there were some huge performances that really gave us some relief, gave us relieve that heartburn a little bit. And Tim, I'll really look in your direction again in this space, because we were talking about this player that you had drafted, but ended up being massive in this, in his game 2, which the game script was perfect. Rams were beat up. Marvin Harrison Jr., number 1 wide receiver on the week, 29 points, almost put up that 30 point. He almost, right? If he would have got another couple touchdowns, could have really offset that Kamara game, right? Which I think he should have gotten a couple more. But overall, what's your confidence level now with Marvin Harrison Jr. going forward?
I mean, I really didn't lose that much confidence in him after week 1. You tried to float a trade offer for him, and
I did.
Nah. I can't fault you for trying. You got to buy low, but
hey, it was Calvin Ridley. It wasn't the sub.
No, I know. It's not like it was.
I want the people to know it wasn't somebody like a Christian Kirk or something like that. It was a number 1 wide receiver out there.
Okay.
But who's throwing him the ball? I mean, come on.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's obviously felt much better. I wish the Rams could have kept the game closer, but they're just way too beat up to probably keep any games close with anybody for the next several weeks. So that was unfortunate. They didn't really need to throw it to him anymore. He got all his points in the first quarter pretty much. So, but still great to see. I mean, that's kind of what I expected to see. His first touchdown, I still don't really know how he got his feet down. I mean, that was pretty impressive. He was covered pretty well. And then the effort on the second touchdown too, I like to see.
That full stretch was awesome.
Yeah, so
cool.
But luckily Kyler found him this week. Hopefully he continues to find him, unlike week 1. So
yeah, looked great. Cody, what do you think about Harrison Jr.? It was like, oh boy, here we go, or?
I mean, I thought he looked a lot better. It was kind of more like what you were expecting to get out of him. I mean, from a fantasy perspective and from an NFL real life perspective, when he was being touted as this generational receiver. He does have a great quarterback throwing him the ball, and the offense, it's going to be, generally friendly. We saw what, some of the Lions, Jamison Williams did to this Rams defensive, backfield. It's hard to say just because that Rams backfield is going to get beat time and time again this year, I think. So if you have a receiver and you're playing against the Rams, he's playing against the Rams, put him in your starting lineup. I think he's going to be good to go for some points. I mean, even Michael Wilson had a decent fantasy day, who's the number 2 receiver there for Arizona. So I think this is a defense that you're going to want to play your receivers against. So I'd like to see another week out of Marvin Harrison. I'm not sure what his schedule's like coming up. Let's take a look here. So after those first two, he's got Detroit, which we're still a little unsure. Yep. Their front seven's going to be really solid. You're going to want to play him against Washington. So I guess the next 3 weeks are going to be good weeks for him. And then he has a matchup in San Francisco. So I guess he's going to have 3 strong weeks in a row here. But then I'd like to see him against the 49ers. And then I'll kind of make a better judgment on him.
Yeah, well, I mean, weeks 5, 6, 7, at San Francisco, at Green Bay, and then at home against the Chargers. So those are pretty 3 stout defenses. We'll really see what the real Marvin Harrison is in that weeks. But yeah, in the next 2 weeks, you're right, Cody, against
Detroit.
Next 2
weeks, Tim's going to have him firmly in his starting lineup. Even if he's only got one leg, you got to start him against those defenses here.
Yeah.
It's I mean, I don't expect him to do that every week, but it's just nice to at least see that he can do it. Because after week 1, that was rough. So, but he's a rookie, so he'll probably struggle against some of the better corners that he comes up against, but still happy overall.
We'll see. It seemed like after the week 1 overreaction of 1 catch for 4 yards, it seemed like there was a more concerted effort to focus on him and get him the ball more coming in here to week 2. So it'll be interesting to see if that balances out. Was that just an overreaction to how the media was portraying him after week 1, or is it going to kind of be somewhere in the middle? It'll be interesting to see where they go with that.
That was a product of the OC and Kyler being hearing all the chatter, all right, we're going to get this dude the ball. I mean, he got 8 targets.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. So then is that kind of the overreaction? So are we going to go back to maybe, a 4-target game where he gets 30 yards?
No, I think Kyler saw the potential as well in that game and just saw how wide open he can get and how much effort he's going to put in when he's got the ball, in his hands, or when it comes to how much, that stretch play and everything and how he ran down the sideline. So I think Kyler's going to force feed him slightly more than he did in that first week. Maybe it's just miscommunication, but 6 to 7 targets a game is not out of scope for him at all. Even with
the results, he didn't give him a reason not to feature him more, obviously. So that's really the best part of it. Like if they had force fed him and he wasn't catching the ball, nothing was happening, then that 2 weeks in a row, that would have been terrible. But yeah, I think they definitely emphasized him. Maybe didn't want him to lose confidence after a bad week 1. So,
it's a good coaching move.
Yeah. So,
yep. Yeah. You brought up the Rams, Tim. Can the Rams just kind of say, hey, we're out for the next couple weeks. We're going to take these L's just so we don't have to lose anyone else. I mean, they lost another offensive lineman. Now Cooper Kupp is going to go on IR. I mean, again, another massive injury. This team just is getting decimated with injuries. It's awful to see. I feel kind of bad for the Rams, right? They had a lot of high hopes, and it's just kind of getting thrown in the tank real quick for them. Where do they go from here?
I don't know. Yeah, I mean, it seems like it happens every year. It seems like with them, they've had offensive lineman injuries last year. I feel like obviously Cooper Kupp missed a lot of time, so Kyron Williams missed a few games. It's just, I mean, every team deals with it, but it seems like they've had a little bit more than others. So, it's going to be rough. I don't know if, who's going to emerge. Maybe Kyron Williams ends up being the biggest beneficiary. Maybe they just try to run the ball more because they got, their receivers are, unless someone steps up out of that group, I don't see a whole lot to look forward to.
They got to protect Matt Stafford, but I don't know how they do it. I mean, Cody, you're a fan of the Niners, the team in that division. Are you licking your lips at the Niners-Rams matchups this season?
That happens to be this upcoming weekend, so I very much am. Majority of my friends are Rams fans, so hopefully we can all get together and watch this game, maybe in peace, and I'll lock the door so they can't leave, and force them to sit down for 3 hours and watch it. And we'll see how it goes, but I am very much looking forward to this week's matchup. Debo's out, so if you're the Ayuk owner in your fantasy league, I know it's Ricky in this league, I would say you kind of need to start him after what we've seen the first 2 weeks from the Rams. And if you have the 49ers defense, be prepared, or if you're playing against them, they could score, 20 in a fantasy, matchup for you or against you.
Yeah, Ayuk started slow kind of this year, so this is a good spot for him to
held out for the training camp for the new contract. Same with Jamar Chase. He's starting out slow as well. So I think that's just going to be a product when you're not practicing with the quarterback in team environments for 2 months leading into the season. It's going to take some time.
Yeah, a good spot for him to kind of get on track. So
yeah,
if it doesn't happen for
nice.
Ayuk if it doesn't happen for Ayuk this week, is it a red alert? Is it hit the panic button?
It depends on how he looks out there. I mean, what's the reason it's not happening for Ayuk? Do they go up super early and then kind of just sit the starters in the second half? Is he dropping balls? Is he getting double covered because Debo's out? It's going to kind of does the Rams game plan focus on taking him out of the coverage and Kittle goes off? It's going to kind of depend on what the reason is that he didn't have a great game.
All right. Can see that.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the next couple wide receivers that had great games. DK Metcalf, Justin Jefferson. And Jeff Jefferson took a little knock, and he left the game, but he ended up having a big monster touchdown from Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold's one of the quarterbacks we'll talk about later. But DK Metcalf, down week 1. But yeah, I know, Cody, you're happy to see that production. And, Geno Smith, a guy that a few years back we was watched out of the league, he's looking great. So DK, great production this week. Cody, how do you feel seeing him do that against a pretty good defense in New England?
It felt relieving considering I was looking between him and Cooper Kupp as my 3rd round pick and ended up leaning towards DK. And after week 1, I was really regretting it. I know in the Trash Talk video, Andrew happened to send to me before Monday Night Football. He said, I know you're rethinking some of your draft picks. And he was absolutely right. I was thinking about that DK Cooper Kupp pick there in the 3rd round. But this week he made up for it. Unfortunately, Cooper Kupp got hurt, so we'll never know, what kind of season he could have had. But yeah, DK came through. I talked about it last week. He was going against Surtain on the Broncos. He's going to take out the number 1 receiver on the other side. So I wasn't too surprised he had a rough game there. But it is nice to see him bounce back here against a New England defense that actually has been pretty strong and is supposed to be a little bit stronger going into this year. It felt a lot better. His partner in crime, JSN. I know Manny made a bold prediction that he would be the first guy I cut. He ended up getting, I believe, 14 points as well in fantasy, and he got over 100 yards. It's the first time Seattle receivers have gone over 100 yards, and they both happen to be on my team here. So it felt a lot better. I thought this offense kind of showed some of the potential that I envisioned when I was drafting. I have DK and JSN in very many leagues this year. So hoping this is a trend that will continue, but DK looked really good out there and Geno was definitely looking at him. So I think it's going to be a lot better going forward.
Luckily you didn't need DK's points because he was on your bench, right?
He was. That is correct. He was on my bench. I have 3 other stud receivers, Devonta Smith, Rasheed Rice, and Jameson Williams. I still was the second highest score of the week. So, going against Christian Gonzalez and the Patriots, I wasn't sure how good he is as a corner. I know he's a stud as well. But, I didn't need him or JSN, luckily.
Yeah.
In case of a tie, I have those points on my bench ready to break that tie. Something you can learn. Take notes.
I still had DK doing well in this game, which he did. I started him in other leagues, and he was fantastic. You're right. The JSN pick was surprising. 11 targets for JSN. That's the most he's ever gotten. So it was finally good to see to get the volume. I just hadn't seen that all last year or the first week of this year. That's what I was worried about. But if he gets that kind of volume, of course, you better make something happen. And Geno Smith is looking good. Obviously, Lockett, wasn't at 100%, right? They had said he had knocked. So Jason had to step up, which was nice to see. So hopefully he can continue that production. But we're going forward. I don't know. Also not having Kenneth Walker was a big reason why they threw the ball a lot more in this game. So once Kenneth Walker comes back, are they still going to check the ball close to 30 times a game with Geno Smith? Probably not.
Quite possibly. When you have those weapons out there, receiver, why not?
Because even Charbonnet, got 7 targets? I mean, they weren't really running the ball. He was pretty ineffective on the ground, but he was very effective catching the ball out of the backfield. So
effective enough to spend $99 on if he was a free agent?
98.
Okay.
98.
Okay. 99
Hey, I did make another trade offer to Tim for Charbonnet before the game this week.
Another no mames? What's this one?
No, it wasn't a no mames. I just said, hey, you willing to kill Charbonnet?
It kind of was.
Didn't get accepted. Okay, here we go.
The Calvin Ridley offer wasn't, but yeah, Jeff Wilson Jr. for Zach Charbonnet, I don't know. One of like a four-way committee with the Dolphins.
It was before the Thursday night game. Mostert was out. Jeff Wilson was obviously going to get more touches. But yeah, if the trade went through, that would have been a no mames for sure.
But it was right at the day you picked him up, and I didn't put a claim in for him. So, yeah. But I mean, it's not like Zach Charbonnet is some total stud, but he got
he did well.
Basically all the running back work. He wasn't efficient rushing the ball, and I don't know if he wasn't really efficient running it last year either. So, but he's a good pass catcher at least. So, he's not Kenneth Walker, but he got I think 99% of the snaps at running back or something. It was in the high 90s. So nobody else even really saw the backfield at least. So if Walker's out, he seems to have a pretty safe workload, but I don't know if Walker's going to be out anymore. So
it was good game for him. Either receiving aspect. But other wide receivers who were awesome this week. Nico Collins, big game again. He's definitely number one wide receiver out of Texas, the Houstons. So that's great to see. Malik Neighbors, right? Massive production this week. 18 targets, far exceeding any other wide receiver this week. Daniel Jones is finally learning, hey, if I got a guy like that, I better force feed him the ball. And that's exactly what happened. Now, it was against the
you're also going against those. Yeah, exactly. Thank you.
Yeah, go ahead, Cody. Yeah, we are going against if you're playing against Commanders defense, you better light up your number one receiver.
Pick up a receiver off the free agency wire and start them because, they're going to go off. You gotta, I know he is a divisive guy in this league, but you got to give props to Ricky because he has both Justin Jefferson and Malik Neighbors, so the number 3 and number 5 receiver. And as you mentioned, Jefferson left a little bit early, so he put up this total in 2.5 quarters actually before he kind of did go to the locker room. A lot of it came on a 97-yard bomb, which really hurt against the Niners, but he still looked pretty good out there. Sam Darnold winging him the ball. Ricky probably feels really good about that pick. And then Malik Neighbors, I think he got him in the 6th round. You knew he was going to be a target monster. And it's games like these, 18 targets, like you said, against a subpar defense. He's going to get to play them again later in the year. He's got to be feeling good about that. Not feeling great that Daniel Jones is the quarterback, the one who has to throw him that ball. But it was a volume play on games like this. When he gets the volume, it's going to be great. On games where he doesn't get the volume, there's just not going to be enough touchdowns to go around there. But I think he got him as a value in the draft, so I think it's going to end up being a good pick for him.
Yeah, Daniel Jones doesn't really play well against any other team, but he plays well against Washington traditionally. So, but he only threw the ball 28 times, so Neighbors got 18 of those targets.
18 of those.
Which is just, massive.
Almost 80% of the target share, right?
Yeah. So, but I mean, it's a good idea because he is a good receiver. Like nobody questions that. It's just everything around him. So, games where they're playing a bad defense, where Daniel Jones isn't doing Daniel Jones things, he's probably going to have some pretty good games, but it'll probably be up and down throughout the year. So. But still, good value for where he got
looks
him.
like are against Cleveland and Dallas.
Wow. I'd say, Ricky's wide receiver core, outstanding. Neighbors and Jefferson, Travis Kelce. We definitely might be pushing the panic button there. We'll talk about that in the tight end section, but he's got some questions at quarterback and the tight end position. Rounding out the last top 10 for wide receivers, really, Calvin Ridley. Massive game against the Jets, right? He had a bomb touchdown. He also ran one in, right? So it's cool to see that Calvin really get back on track. I think,
and apparently he's on the trade block from Manny's team.
He is on the trade. Yeah. Is he on the trade block? Oh, he was. Yeah. He was on the trade block.
And he was on Manny's bench too. Ouch.
Yeah, he was on my bench. I thought Sauce would put up a better game. I mean, Sauce, Calvin Ridley was double covered on that deep touchdown, and it seemed like both Jets DBs
I still don't know how he caught it. Yeah, that was wild. But no, I don't blame. I mean, plus you have good receivers. So, but it's just always rough when you got a guy on your bench who would have gotten you the win.
We got me the win. Popped off. Yep. Definitely something that kind of irks me a little bit, but we'll get into my matchup. But Chris Godwin, Devontae Adams finally in the top 10. Big game from him, to close out the Raiders' victory against Baltimore. So Angel again, good job. But again, Carlos having Rashid Shaheed pop in that top 10, right? And Cody, you brought it up earlier when we were having our offline discussion. Rashid Shaheed is actually the number one wide receiver in our league over 2 weeks. You know, they're talking about the Derek Carr situation, and good for him. I mean, that's kind of cool. He's above CeeDee Lamb, Zay Flowers, Rashid Rice. So pretty awesome to see for Rashid Shaheed. Now that's on not that many targets, not that much production, but that yardage. And when he hits those 50+ yard touchdowns, we know those are massive, you know, game-changing plays and matchup-changing plays when that happens. So what do you guys think?
Plus he returns kicks, and then our league kick returns do generate some points for Carlos. It was a shrewd pick by him. A very good pick that I was kind of hoping to steal as a sleeper, but he jumped on him, you know, very early. He's first in our league with a healthy margin over Godwin, who happens to be number 2 by about 7 points. So, you know, he could be first even after next week if he just has another half decent game here.
Yeah, I don't think that was a sleeper for Carlos. He had him last year too.
No,
so.
he did. He sure did.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was well aware.
Yeah, Shaheed's definitely going to pop off against that Philly defense. I mean, he should potentially. I mean, I don't see who's going to – if they're going to bracket